All right, folks, today I'm going to show you how to properly light a smoker. Smoker is one of the most critical pieces of equipment that we have. And one of the #1 complaints I get from new beekeepers is that I can't keep my smoker lit. I can get it going, but it won't stay smoking. Now, if you are having issues with smokers staying lit, you need to really reconsider how you're actually putting everything together. And that's what I'm going to cover today. And just to give you an indication, this is a tall smoker. They have short smokers as well. The short smoker should last you about 2 hours. This tall smoker, easily 3 to 4. So if you're not getting that type of time out of your smoker, something is being done improperly when it comes to packing that piece of equipment and getting it to smolder properly. So let's cover how we do that. Now we're first going to start with a few different components that we have here that we're using as fuel. The big thing that you need to be conscious of when it comes to fuel is you want to primarily use organic materials. You can use a little newspaper to get something going, but you want to be burning things like leaves, pine needles, pine cones, pieces of pine cones, or twigs, or wood shavings, or things like that. If you don't have these types of things around your house, this is just from the farm here, if you don't have those types of things around, animal bedding works really well as well. Sawdust as well, as long as it's not from any sawdust that has glues in it or things like that. Particle board would be an example of something you don't want to use. But if you're using pure wood, you can use wood shavings as well. So there's all sorts of different materials that you can use. But primarily, you want to stick with the organic stuff. So we have leaves, pine needles, pine cones, and twigs. And these are categorized in 2 different areas. So we have our light materials that burn very quickly, the pine needles and the leaves. And then we have our materials that are a little heavier, more dense, and burn much slower. And that would be things like our pine cone chips, or our pieces of pine cone, and our twigs. The way that this is going to work is that you're going to layer this in a way so that you have light materials on the bottom and heavier materials on top. And what's going to happen is those light materials are going to burn and smolder, and then they're going to catch those top materials that are a little denser. And that's where you get your longevity out of, is how much those things are packed together so that there's a constant continuity up the column. You basically want, embers down here that are able to contact everything as they're moving up, and that's how you get a smoker that lasts a long time. The biggest problem that I see with folks is not packing it tight enough. So let's go through this process step by step and show you how this is done. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our newspaper ready. Now I have 2 pieces of newspaper. One we're going to use at the end, and one that we're going to use in the beginning. Now the one that we're going to use in the beginning to get things going, I'm going to tear this into strips. And then I'm just going to kind of loosely ball these strips up. Just like if you were starting a fire in the fireplace or at the campfire. A little bit of something to get things going. I'm going to sit there and ball those up. Now, I'd also like to just mention at this point that I am indoors right now. You would not be doing this indoors. The reason I'm indoors is because it's very windy outside. In order to get the right audio so that you can all hear me, I needed to be inside. So we're making adjustments. I do have an air recirculator running and the garage door open, so I do have some airflow coming in here. But this is not something you would do indoors, just for instructional purposes. So I've got all my pieces balled up here. I'm going to go ahead and open my smoker. Most smokers will have a latch that hangs over. This is a very old smoker. It's been with me for about a decade. It's lost a few parts, so the cap comes right off there. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to start with this newspaper. And let's start there. We'll just light our newspaper, get it going, and then we're going to stick it in there. And you want this to burn. So you see we've got a fire coming out of that. I'm going to add a little bit more newspaper as that's burning. We're going to get that to kind of come up more in that column. Nice flame coming out of there. Again, another piece of newspaper just to keep that fire going. And then I'll put a little last piece in here. This is all loosely placed in there right now, mainly so that we can get that fire going. Now that we got a good fire going, it's time for our looser material. So I'm going to take some leaves, and I'm just going to poke them in there. We're going to keep that pumping going, and we're going to get those leaves to light on fire. You'll see the fire coming up through there. I'm going to take a little bit more of my leaves, just a little at a time, add a little bit more in there. And again, we keep pumping, and you should see a fire come up through here. Now at this point, I've got my newspaper in there, but I've also got a little bit of this organic material at this point that has a fire going in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pack a little bit more of this in there, like so. Keep pumping. Now we are getting to the point where we should be starting to smolder in here. So you can see the smoke is starting to intensify. We're keeping that flame going, and I got a little bit of that flame back. Now I'm at a point where I really want to pack this. I'm going to take all of my pine needles, I'm going to place those in there, and I'm going to push it down because we're trying to keep continuity between that initial flame. I'm going to keep it bumping. You see how much smoke is coming out of there? Now I'm going to take another handful of this stuff, poke it right in there. Now, right at this point in time, I'm about here as far as full is concerned because I'm packing this down so deeply. At this point, I am ready for my heavy materials. I've got good smolder going down in this bottom half. Now it's time to pack all this stuff in there. It's going to keep this going. I'm going to take a whole handful of those pine cones, and I'm going to dump it in there. And I'm going to press it down, and I'm going to keep pumping. Pump, pump, pump. You see that smoke coming back up through there? Nice, dense smoke. I'm going to take another handful of that heavier material. I'm going to put it all right on top. You see, I'm pushing with my hand down every time I do this so that it's packed tightly. Last, I'm going to take my twigs here. I'm going to place those in there. Pushing down, down. Tight, tight. Smoke, smoke, smoke. Get that pumping, get that continuity going again. Now we have a nice column of continuity. It's tightly packed here. I'm going to since I have a little bit of extra room and I need to pack this tight, I'm just going to take all this last material I've got here. I'm going to pack all that in. Now, you saw how much material was on this table. Every bit of that went into this smoker. So you can see how much I'm packing this. Now that it's totally packed, I'm going to repump this again just to get everything burning together nicely. You can see that nice dense smoke coming out there. It's very cool. I can have my hand right over top of it and not burn myself whatsoever, which is what you want out of the smoker. So this smoker is now very well lit. If I were to basically use this at this point, this would continue smoking, like I said, for about 4 hours. Now, the last piece you're going to do is our last piece of newspaper. You're going to take a piece of this. You're going to crumple it up. And we'll take most of that. Crumple that up. And you're going to place it right on top here. Now, the reason we do that is when you are working in the apiary and you have this smoker over a beehive and you're smoking it, if you do not have something on top of that material, you will get hot embers that will blow out onto your bees. So the piece of newspaper is so that nothing else comes out on there. But at this point in time, you see I've got a nice smoke, nice cool smoke. I can put my hand right over it. It's not hot at all. And when I walk away from this, and this is key, when you walk away from your smoker, it should continue to smoke on its own because that column of continuity is so tight and so packed together that there's no chance for that ember to lose contact with another piece of organic matter as it's moving up here. And you can see that this is just passively smoking at this point. That's what your smoker should be doing in the apiary. This smoker in this condition, as it is right now, you see all that smoke coming out? In this condition, this smoker should last me 4 hours in the apiary. Now, the last piece of this is when you're done with a smoker, you've been smoking. It's hot. This is hot. This is a cage to prevent you from burning yourself on this. But this gets very hot over time. So as you're done with a smoker, there's a few things you want to consider. First, we want to snuff out the fire. So one thing you can do is take some long grass, twist it up, and shove it right in the front of that. You want to use green grass so that it doesn't burn. But you can shove that right in there, and that will smolder this out. But if you are going to store this with any sort of embers in it, like we've got going on here, any sort of embers in this, you want to ensure that it's in something that will make this safe so it doesn't burn down your house, burn down your car, anything like that. This is still hot. It's still got smoke coming out. So what we would do in that situation, I like to use metal trash can. And essentially what you're going to do, you place that in there, put the top on it, and you're good to go. Your smoker is no longer a fire hazard at this point. You can see my dented trash can. This was in a car accident with me, including this smoker, but it still works, and I'm still using it. But this is the safe way to transport a smoker in a vehicle, in a truck, something like that. So when you're done with it, you want to snuff it out and then put it in something that is secure so that you don't start a fire. And these little metal trash cans are really the best choice. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned how to pack your smoker properly. We'll see you at the next one.